Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Voodoo here, and welcome to another edition of Voodoo's Verdict, which is my series of honest and thorough game reviews. Today we are going to be talking about a game that is a reboot of a very popular franchise from the 1990s that also spawned off a movie series, and this game really seeks to reboot the character, give the character a whole new look and feel to the game, and really bring it into the next generation. So the game that we'll be highlighting today will be Tomb Raider, the 2013 reboot. So first of all, what is Tomb Raider? What is basically the new story of Lara Croft? Well, Tomb Raider is basically the origin story of Tomb Raider. It talks about Lara, gives some of her background, and how she ultimately winds up becoming Tomb Raider. So the game begins with Lara and her team of archaeologists and explorers aboard a ship, and they are looking for this ancient lost civilization known as Yamatai in Japan. And more or less, they can't find it, but Lara has the idea that it might be located in this area known as the Dragon's Triangle, which is supposedly this very dangerous area, of seas to go into, probably very similar to like the Bermuda Triangle. And at first there's some resistance to going there, but finally they agreed to go to the Dragon's Triangle to look for Yamatai. Well, ultimately the ship winds up wrecking and sinking, and it strands Lara and her team on this island in the vicinity of Japan. And at first, of course, the game is, the point is to keep the team together, keep everybody alive, and basically try to find a way off this island to contact help or to find some way to leave the island they're stranded on. But as the game progresses, you realize that this isn't just an ordinary island, and that there are some mystical forces at play here, and something that is basically preventing you from leaving this island. Without really giving anything away, they start to really realize this after many rescue attempts fail. They realize that there's just something supernatural going on that's keeping them on this island. And so for the rest of the game, really the point is to discover what is going on and to find a way to end it. You realize that the island that you are stranded on is inhabited by some very odd people who seem to be some form of army who is connected to this this mystical power. You meet an enigmatic character who is kind of the leader of these people, and he really kind of becomes your arch nemesis throughout the game. And really, that's more or less in a nutshell the plot of the game. It's interesting. It's a mix of different types of things, like Far Cry 3 from being stranded on the island and it's inhabited, some Uncharted where there's some mystical things going on that are supernatural, stuff like that. So as far as the gameplay of Tomb Raider is a third-person action-adventure platformer, and the gameplay, again, I would say is similar to like an Uncharted, but less combat-oriented. I would say that there's a fair share of combat in the game, but it's more involved with exploration and platforming and searching for collectibles than it is necessarily the combat. So as you go through the island, and the game is linear, but at the same time it's open world. And when I say that, I mean that there's a linear path that you follow along in the story, but many of the areas that you run into along the way are vast and open, and you can wander around these areas looking for many different types of collectibles, whether or not it is relics. There are challenges available in the game, like collect a certain amount of mushrooms or burn a certain number of enemy flags that you find. You can find these things called GPS caches, and more or less, unfortunately, all this stuff is great, and you know, as you find artifacts, Laura will talk a little bit about them, but mainly all these collectibles do is give you experience points, and as you earn experience, you will level up and unlock skill points that you can then spend to buy skills in 3 different branches. You've got the Hunter branch, which is mainly like your combat, your gunplay area of skills. You have your Survival branch, which is more or less making it easier to hunt animals and stuff, which you can also hunt animals that roam around simply for more experience. You can find things that help you find more collectibles, things like that, like seeing collectibles through walls and stuff. And then the Brawler, which is actually unlocked a little bit further into the game when you can actually use your pickaxe that you use to climb certain rocks. You can actually use the pickaxe in combat, and the Brawler upgrades increase your melee ability. So you'll be able to you know, do like a dodge counter move with the blade, and it gets to a point, if you level it up enough, you can instantly kill enemies with this. So a lot of looking around for collectibles, and again, like killing animals that you see to earn experience points. There's also a lot of what they call salvage that's hidden around in crates, and what salvage does is it allows you to upgrade your weapons. Now, your weapon arsenal is going to be very familiar to other games that you've played. There is a bow and arrow, which is the first weapon you get in the game, which, in my opinion, is possibly one of the best, if not the best weapon in the game, simply because you can take an ability very early on that lets you gather your arrows off of enemies. So basically, you never run out of ammo with the bow if you take this ability. So there's the bow, and then as you go along, you find things like a pistol, a machine gun, or like an assault rifle, a shotgun, stuff like that. So it's a pretty standard weapon selection to use. But with this salvage, you can upgrade weapons, and you can upgrade them quite a bit. And the bow is really awesome to upgrade because you can get to a point in the game where you upgrade. You know, you can get exploding tips on your arrows that explode on impact. You can upgrade damage, you can upgrade accuracy, you can upgrade all that for basically all the weapons, okay? And that's what salvage allows you to do. So there's a lot of searching for that kind of stuff. There are also optional tombs called hidden tombs, although they're really not hidden, they're kind of easy to find. I actually was able to complete all of the tombs without you know, looking up where they were. Just I happened upon them. And what tombs are pretty simplistic puzzle rooms. They're basically like one room that you will go into, and there will be one puzzle that you need to solve. And it, you know, they're a little bit challenging, but they're nothing like mind melding, you know, or anything like that. They're after you look at them for a little while, you can figure them out. And once you do this certain puzzle, they're usually always some kind of platforming puzzle. You get to this area where there's a box at the end that you can open. You will get a good amount of salvage, a good amount of experience, and usually like a map that will show you the collectibles in the area as you do these hidden tombs. And I think there's between like 7 to 10 of these tombs in the game. As I said, platforming is a heavy element of the game. There's all kinds of things you can do in platforming. Simple, you know, climbing on ledges. Again, as I mentioned, you can use the pickaxe to climb up certain climbable walls. You unlock different abilities as you go. For instance, later in the game you acquire rope arrows, and at certain points you can shoot a rope arrow to an area, you know, over a ledge and stick the arrow into a post near you, and you can basically make a rope bridge that you can then climb across to get to the other side. Things like that. So platforming, there's a good amount of it in the game. And another aspect that kind of makes the game open world is the ability to fast travel between base camps. And what base camps are, you know, as you progress through the game, you'll come across base camps, and that's where you can level yourself up, spend skill points, and upgrade your weapons at these base camps. And you can fast travel to any base camp, and that allows you to go back to different areas that you may have missed collectibles before, and you want to go back and collect them. There's also journals that you find along the way that, you know, give you a lot of backstory into characters that you're with and stuff like that. So that's more or less in a nutshell the gameplay of Tomb Raider. As far as graphics go, the graphics are beautiful. They're very, very good. But we're kind of approaching the end of the life cycle now of the PS3 and Xbox 360. I played this on the Xbox, and so, you know, we kind of expect graphics to be amazing at this point, and they were, okay? Very high production value. A lot of big explosions, a lot of big set pieces. You'll have epic set pieces where you're running and doing, you know, platforming, you know, during an epic set piece when things are all falling down around you and you have to run and platform and try to escape. You know, quick time based set pieces, things like that. It's pretty cinematic, and the production values are very high, which is cool for a game like this. It brings it to a more epic scale. So, briefly, I'm going to discuss what I liked about the campaign of Tomb Raider, what I didn't like so much about the campaign of Tomb Raider, and then I'm going to briefly discuss the multiplayer, because to be honest with you, it really doesn't deserve much of a mention, but I'm going to mention it at the end anyway, because I played a little bit of it just now, actually. But things I liked about Tomb Raider. I thought that the game overall was a very good game. From the standpoint of this is a reboot, it's basically the first game in the new series. So, you know, they had something to work with, obviously, with the Tomb Raider lore and Lara Croft from the 90s, but they really kind of redid everything, made it kind of a new style of game than it was back then. And so I thought for, you know, what they did, it was a very good game. It was made by Crystal Dynamics, was the studio who developed the game. So I really liked the, you know, the high production values. I thought it was an epic style game. The controls of the game I found were very good. I found the platforming to be very fluid. Lara's movements were very fluid, you know. As she would be in combat, as she would run up to a box, she would automatically duck, but she wouldn't become like glued to the wall or anything. Like if you run up to a crate, she would just automatically duck down to where she was low enough that she was in cover, but you could still easily fluidly move between covers because she didn't stick herself to the wall or anything like that. So fluid controls. I thought the plot was interesting. However, I must say that the plot really wasn't anything too, again, mind-bending or anything like that. It's pretty easy to figure out what's going on halfway through the game, and it's kind of weird because, like, you obviously know what's going on, and then, like, an hour or two later, Lara will have this epiphany where she's like, oh, this is what's going on. And it's like, I thought we already knew that. Like, I knew that 2 hours ago. You didn't know that already? So, it's really not that mind-bending of a plot, but it's interesting, even though you can kind of figure out what's going on without too much effort. But it kept me entertained, and, you know, overall, I liked the game. I thought it was a pretty good game. Now, some of the negatives I have with the game are the combat, for the most part, is pretty well done. But I must say that the combat in the game is absolutely brutal, to the point where I compare it a lot to Max Payne 3, to the brutality of the combat, to where, like, you know, you'll get shot a few times and you're instantly dead. It's a regenerating health kind of a thing, very similar to Uncharted, but definitely the combat's harder than it is in Uncharted. And for the most part, I don't find this to be too much of a problem, because, you know, it's kind of refreshing to have a game that offers a little bit of a challenge on the normal difficulty, as opposed to some of these other games we play that just are so easy to beat, you know? So I don't really have a problem with that. The only thing I really had a problem with in the combat is that a lot of the enemies will throw Molotov cocktails or grenades, it's really dynamite, but every single time one of these enemies tosses this thing, it literally could not be a more perfect toss. And I'm talking every single time. They never miss. And they could be 100 yards away, and you could be around a corner. They will still manage to throw the dynamite perfectly to where it lands at your feet. And this can be really annoying when you're in a room with a lot of enemies. And again, you don't have a lot of health, so you'll be taking cover, and enemies will be throwing dynamite or Molotov cocktails at you perfectly behind this cover, forcing you to have to move, and then as soon as you get out of cover and try to find other cover, you get demolished by everybody else shooting you and you die, and there's really nothing you can do about it. In some of the stages, I had to just get lucky to where they either didn't throw the grenades, or I was able to kill them before they threw it or something like that. But to be honest, I didn't really die that many times. I died a few times. The checkpoints, the saving in the game is really good, so I never really had to redo a lot of gameplay. So that was kind of annoying. But other than that, I thought the combat was done pretty well. And it's a nice challenge. So, just a few other thoughts. Let me check my time real quick. Okay. Well, I guess right now we should talk about the multiplayer a little bit, and then I'll wrap up my review. The multiplayer of the game was actually developed by somebody different than the campaign, okay? The multiplayer was developed by Eidos Montreal, who always works with Square Enix. The multiplayer in a word is crap. It's tacked on, it's super generic, it's almost identical to the Uncharted multiplayer, except not as good. I only played like a couple of matches. I played Team Deathmatch and Regular Deathmatch, so it looks to me like there's just normal modes in the game. You have loadouts, and they're standard loadouts. You can earn salvage in multiplayer, you can upgrade, you know, your weapons. But it's extremely generic, and not only that, but the last match I played, like, was just horrendous, to where when stuff would go on the screen, the frame rates would just go in the toilet. I mean, it was awful. The frame rates were god-awful. The frame rates were never bad in the campaign, but in the multiplayer, the frame rates were abominably bad when stuff was going on the screen, and at the end of the last match I played, the lag was just... People were teleporting and zooming all over the place. It looked hilarious. People were literally teleporting from up on mountains to down on the ground to into the caves to back up here to all over the place, and they were zooming all around. It was trash, okay? It's garbage. Eidos completely botched the multiplayer. There's no reason for the multiplayer to even be in the game, okay? There's no reason. The game doesn't need it. It's tacked on, and it's basically garbage, okay? So we're just going to dismiss the multiplayer because it doesn't even need to be there, and it's trash, really. Crystal Dynamics, however, did a really good job with the campaign. I think it took me around about 11 hours to beat the game, so a pretty lengthy game, and keep in mind that I only did 70% completion. There was a lot of collectibles that I didn't go back and get. So if you go back and do all of the collectibles, the game could take you anywhere from, I don't know, 12 to 14 hours if you 100% the game. I did do all the optional tombs, but I didn't do the, you know, collecting all of the stuff and doing all the challenges and all that. So in the end, what do I think of Tomb Raider? Well, undoubtedly this game is going to be compared to Uncharted, and we all know that Tomb Raider came first and Uncharted really took from Tomb Raider, but this is a new generation of Tomb Raider. It's a redo of Tomb Raider that's come after 3 Uncharted games. It's a new style of game, so really it should be compared to games like Uncharted, because this is a new Tomb Raider. It's not what we were used to. So, is it as good as the Uncharted series? No. It's not as good. And, you know, I don't know what game really could be, because Uncharted has set the bar just so high for these action, you know, exploration, these crazy explorers looking for these lost cities, and, you know, the game is very similar. The combat's very similar. The platforming element to the game, the fact that there's mystical, you know, stuff going on like there is in every Uncharted game, the fact that Lara, throughout the whole game, is in these impossible situations. She just gets the shit beat out of her. She falls from like 100 feet on her back, on her face. Stuff is falling on her. Things she's just perfectly fine, nothing wrong, you know. Very similar to Nathan Drake. So is it as good as Uncharted? No. It does do some things differently than Uncharted, with like the weapon, you know, the weapon upgrades, with the all the collectibles, with the bow and arrow, with the melee combat. So it does, well, melee combat with a weapon instead of like punching. So it does do things that are different than Uncharted, so that it doesn't necessarily feel like an Uncharted clone, but there are similarities. So it's not as good as that, but that certainly doesn't make it a bad game, because Uncharted is like way up here, alright? But I was impressed with you know, with the reboot. I thought it was a good game, a very good game actually. I really enjoyed playing the game. I think there's a lot of good stuff here. A few negatives, sure. You know, it's not Game of the Year contender, okay, but it's a very good game. I think it's definitely worth a playthrough. I'm excited, you know, to see where they go with it, because it's a new series. They're going to be making more, so I'm excited to see where they go. So, all that into consideration, what do I rate Tomb Raider? I'm going to give Tomb Raider I should say, an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a very good game. I thought it deserved an 8. I don't think it deserves any higher than that because it's nothing that we haven't already seen before. But it's done well. And there's far too many games that do everything that we've seen before, and they do it poorly. This game does it really well, so that's definitely a plus for it. It was a fun playthrough. I really enjoyed it. Good game, an 8 out of 10. All these people giving the game over 9s are absolutely ridiculous. The game is not over a 9 in my opinion. But it is an 8, and I think it deserves an 8. And good job, Crystal Dynamics, for making a good game and making a good start to a new series that will probably wind up being pretty good. Okay? So, thank you for watching my review. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Voodoo's Verdict. I hope it helped you out in thinking about whether or not you want to play Tomb Raider. I think it's worth a playthrough, and I enjoyed the game. Just don't bother with the multiplayer because it's garbage. Alright? Thank you guys for watching. I am Voodoo, and I will see you next time when I review another game here on Voodoo's Verdict.